Adolf Hitler, the leader of Germany's Nazi Party, was one of the most powerful and notorious dictators of 20th century. Hitler capitalized on economic wars, popular discontent, and political infighting to take absolute power in Germany beginning in 1933. Germany's invasion of Poland in 1939 led to the outbreak of World War II, and by 1941, Nazi forces had occupied much of Europe. Hitler's virulent anti Semitism and obsessive pursuit of Aryan supremacy fueled the murder of some 6 million Jews, along with other victims of Holocaust. After the tide of the war turned against him, Hitler committed suicide in Berlin bunker in April 1945. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a small Austrian town near Austro-German frontier. After his father Alois retired as a state custom official, young Adolf spent most of his childhood in Linz, the capital of Upper Austria. Not wanting to follow his father's footsteps as a civil servant, he began struggling in secondary school and eventually dropped out. His father died in 1903, and then Adolf pursued his dream of being an artist, though he was rejected from the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts. After his mother, Clara, died in 1908, Hitler moved to Vienna where he pieced together a living painting scenery and monuments and selling the images. Lonely, isolated, and ferocious leader, Hitler became interested in politics during his years in Vienna and developed many of the ideas that would shape Nazis' ideology. In 1913, Hitler moved to Munich in German state of Bavaria. When World War I broke out, the following summer he successfully petitioned the Bavarian king to be allowed to volunteer in the Reserve Infantry Regiment. Deployed in October 1914 to Belgium, Hitler served throughout the Great War and won two decorations for bravery, including the rare Iron Cross First Class, which he wore to the end of his life. Hitler was wounded twice during the conflict. He was hit in the leg during the Battle of Somme in 1916 and temporarily blinded by a British gas attack near Ypres in 1918. A month later, he was recuperating in a hospital northeast of Berlin when news arrived of the armistice and Germans' defeat in World War I. Like many Germans, Hitler came to believe the country's devastating defeat could be attributed not to the Allies, but to insufficiently patriotic traitors at home, a myth that would undermine the post war Weimar Republic and set the stage for Hitler's rise. After Hitler returned to Munich in late 1918, he joined the small German Workers' Party, which aimed to unite the interests of working class with a strong German nationalism. His skilled oratory and charismatic energy helped propel him in party's rank, and in 1920 he left the army and took charge of its propaganda efforts. By the end of 1921, Hitler led the growing Nazi Party, capitalizing on widespread discontent with the Weimar Republic and the punishing terms of Versailles Treaty. Many dissatisfied former army officers in the Munich then joined the Nazis. In one of Hitler's stroke of propaganda genius, the newly renamed National Socialist Worker Party or Nazi Party adopted a version of ancient symbol of Hannahkreuze or hooked cross, printed in a white circle on a red background. Hitler's swastika would take on a terrifying symbolic power in the years to come. Obsessed with race and the idea of ethnic purity, Hitler saw a natural order that placed the so called Aryan race at the top. For him, the unity of Volk, the German people, would find its truest incarnation not in democratic or parliamentary government, but in one supreme leader or Führer. Mekamp also addressed the need for Lebensraum or living space. In order to fulfill its destiny, Germany should take over the lands to the east that were now occupied by inferior Slavic people that included Austria, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Russia. In 1932, Hitler ran against the war hero Paul von Hindenburg for the president and received 36.8% of the vote. With the government in chaos, three successive chancellors failed to maintain the control, and in late January 1933, Hindenburg named the 43-year-old Hitler as the chancellor, capping the stunning rise of an unlikely leader. January 30, 1933 marked the birth of the Third Reich, or as the Nazis call it, the Thousand-Year Reich, after Hitler's boast that it would endure for a millennium. Though the Nazis never attained more than 37% of the vote at the height of their popularity in 1932, Hitler was able to grab absolute power in Germany largely due to the division and inaction among the majority who opposed the Nazism. On March 23, Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, giving full power to Hitler and celebrating the union of National Socialism with the old German establishment, Hindenburg. That July, the government passed a law stating that the Nazi Party constitutes the only political party in Germany, and within the months, all the non Nazi party, trade unions, and other organizations had ceased to exist. His autocratic power now secure within the Germany, Hitler turns his eye toward the rest of the Europe. In March 1936, against the advice of his generals, Hitler ordered German troops to reoccupy the demilitarized left bank of Rhine. Over the next 2 years, Germany concluded alliances with Italy and Japan, annexed Austria, and moved against Czechoslovakia, all essentially without the resistance from Great Britain, France, or the rest of the international community. Once he confirmed the alliance with Italy in the so called Pact of Steel in May 1939, Hitler then signed a non aggression pact with the Soviet Union. On September 1st, 1939, Nazi troops invaded Poland, finally prompting Britain and France to declare war on Germany. After ordering the occupation of Norway and Denmark in April 1940, Hitler adopted a plan proposed by one of his generals to attack France through the Ardennes forest. The Blitzkrieg lightning war attack began on May 10th. Holland quickly surrendered, followed by Belgium. German troops made it all the way to English Channel, forcing British and French forces to evacuate the masses from Dunkirk in late May. On June 22, France was forced to sign an armistice with Germany. Hitler had hoped to force Britain to seek peace as well, but when that failed, he went ahead with his attack on that country, followed by the invasion of Soviet Union in 1940, thus neutralizing the non-operation treaty which he has signed with Russia before. After the attack on Pearl Harbor that December, the United States declared war on Japan, and Germany's alliance with Japan depended that the Hitler declare war on the United States as well. With defeats at Al-Amin and Stalingrad, as well as the landing of US troops in North Africa by the end of 1942, the tide of war turned against Germany. As the conflict continued, Hitler became increasingly unwell, isolated, and dependent on medications administered by his personal physicians. Within a few months of successful Allied invasion of Normandy in June 1944, the Allied had become liberating cities across Europe. That December, Hitler attempted to direct another offense through Ardennes forest, trying to split British and American forces, but he failed. But after January 1945, he holed up in a bunker beneath the Chancellery in Berlin, with Soviet forces closing in. Hitler made plans for a last ditch resistance before finally abandoning that plan. At midnight on the night of April 29, Hitler married Eva Braun in Berlin bunker. After dictating his political testament, Hitler shot himself in his suit on April 30, and Braun took poison. Their bodies were burnt according to Hitler's instructions. With Soviet troops occupying Berlin, Germany surrendered unconditionally on all fronts on May 7, 1945, thus bringing the war in Europe to a close. In the end, Hitler's planned thousand-year Reich lasted just over 12 years, but wreaked unfathomable destruction and devastation during that time, forever transforming the history of Germany, Europe, and the world.